Doing my research, digging, I came across a New York Slimes article dated October 30, 1984. By my calculation, that's 30 years ago. By Richard Lyons. How release of mental patients began. Now, of course, this killer was not a mental patient that was in a facility. But in many respects, it's all the same movement. And they began by saying the policy that led to the release of most of the nation's mentally ill patients from hospital to the community is now widely regarded as a major failure. Sweeping critiques of the policy, notably the recent report of the American Psychiatric Association, have spread the blame everywhere, faulting politicians, civil libertarian lawyers, and psychiatrists. But who specifically played some of the more important roles in the formation of this ill-fated policy? What motivated these influential people, and what lessons are to be learned? Many of these psychiatrists involved as practitioners and policymakers in the 50s and 60s said in interviews that heavy responsibility lay on a sometimes neglected aspect of the problem, the over-reliance on drugs to do the work of society. This is 30 years old. I suspect it's the same today. The records show politicians were dogged by the image and financial problems posed by the state hospitals, and that the scientific and medical establishment sold Congress and the state legislatures a quick fix for a complicated problem that was brought sight unseen. And one of the biggest takers, they report, was Edmund Brown, then governor of California, and he instituted this policy in 1959. And Dr. Robert Felix, who was then director of the National Institute of Mental Health, a major figure in the shift to community centers, says now in reflection, quote, many of those patients who left the state hospitals never should have done so. We psychiatrists saw too much of the old snake pit, saw too many people who shouldn't have been there, and we overreacted. The result is not what we intended, and perhaps we didn't ask the questions that should have been asked when developing a new concept. But psychiatrists are human too, and we tried our damnedest. John Talbot, doctor, president of the American Psychiatric Association, said the psychiatrists involved in the policy making at that time certainly oversold community treatment, and our credibility today is probably damaged because of it. He said the policies were based partly on wishful thinking, partly on the enormousness of the problem, and the lack of a silver bullet to resolve it then and now. And I'll reiterate, whatever fix, quote-unquote, is instituted, if any, there are no silver bullets. Now, these original policy changes, that is, emptying these mental institutions, were backed by scores of national professional and philanthropic organizations and several hundred people prominent in medicine, academic, and politics. The belief then was widespread that the same scientific researchers who had conjured up antibiotics and vaccines during the outburst of medical discovery in the 50s and 60s had also developed penicillins to cure psychoses and thus revolutionized the treatment of mentally ill. And it goes on at some great length. This will be posted along with our other sources for your use, and we give attribution on our website at the end of the show, correct, Mr. Producer? So you'll have access to that article. It's worth reading. I can't read the whole thing on the air. It's 6 pages printed out. But I'm not going to do a number of things behind this microphone just to sum up. I'm not going to trash all the young people in this country. I'm not going to trash the social media. I'm not going to trash the NRA. I'm not going to trash the parents, of whom we don't know that much, just because the father works in Hollywood. It's not clear yet to me. We'll get more facts eventually on the therapist or therapists and whether they acted quickly enough, given what they were provided and when they were provided it. I'm not going to trash law enforcement because their hands are tied. There's only so much they can do. And I'm not going to trash white males or males generally. Because if society were of this kind, in other words, if most of the people who watch video games, if most of the people who are men, who are white, if most of the people, you name it, young people in this country, were of this mindset, we wouldn't be living in this country the way we do, would we? It'd be one hell of a violent, crazy place. Now, it's violent and crazy enough. But what if the overwhelming majority of people who I just identified, groups I just identified, conducted themselves this way? You know, we conservatives like to deal with the individual. Well, when tragedy strikes, we should deal with the individual too. Unless somebody's declaring war on us, like Al-Qaeda or so forth, then we deal with individuals and groups. But this isn't a group. This is an individual. This isn't all young people. We have young people who have volunteered to go to Afghanistan and Iraq and one hellhole after another. We have young people who have voluntarily joined law enforcement, become firefighters, emergency personnel, and so forth. Millions and millions of wonderful young American people in this country who contribute to this society or try to contribute to this society. I mean, Barack Obama, what is he, 50? I'm 56. I voted against him. I fight against him every day. Am I responsible for Barack Obama doing stupid things? No. So you are going to have to unravel some of the crap that you're hearing over TV and radio and just use your common sense and understand these things are much more complicated than some would have you believe. They just are.